for, the period around this latest criminal case. I saw the devotees, I saw the groupies, I saw all the rest of it, and I was actually with Michael Jackson in Times Square not more than 2 years ago. I forgot about it till this second. We've got to get that tape. I wasn't physically with him. He got on the phone. We talked to his fans in Times Square who had gathered there to show their support. And Julie Banderas, our Julie Banderas, is in Times Square now live with some of the fans and some of the people who are curious about the activities of this tragic day. And she also has a look into Jackson's turbulent childhood. Julie.
Yeah, Geraldo, first of all, just to give you an idea of some, if you could just pan over here, Paul, just so you can see the masses of crowds that have gathered here in Times Square. Those are actually the ticket booths where people come and buy Broadway tickets. People have been asking me, is there a show in Times Square? What's going on in Times Square? We tell them Michael Jackson has died. Many people, when they learned about Michael Jackson passing away, they came to Times Square for some reason. Perhaps this is because this is the crossroads of the world where people from all around the country, all around the world come to gather here today. Silvio is actually from Australia. Silvio, you got the news. You're here traveling in New York City.
Absolutely.
Tell me about the news when you heard about it.
Well, I was absolutely shocked. I mean, from an Australian, Michael Jackson, he transcended countries, nationality, you name it. So for me, it was unbelievable.
All right, I'm going to send it back to Geraldo real quick, and then we're going to come right back to us here live in Times Square. Geraldo?
Julie, we'll be right back to you. They are preparing to remove the mortal remains, or the physical remains of Michael Jackson from the chopper, from the sheriff's chopper, into the coroner's van for transport into the building. And as we look at this universally humbling experience and this scene, this poignant scene, it's hard to make the transition from this to the Thriller video or the Ed Sullivan appearance or the other seminal events that have marked his life. So now he's in a plain white van. They will be transporting him, from what Adam reported, to an expedited autopsy. The toxicology results, doctor, will take how long, Dr. Siegel?
They'll take about 2 or 3 days. The first part will be to look at the physical remains, the organs themselves, and then they will start to look at them under the microscope. The entire autopsy should take just a few days. Some of the toxicology reports will take a little longer. The initial ones, just 2 or 3 days.
When they say cardiac arrhythmia, all that really means is, the heart at some point stopped beating. Is that a cause of death?
Well, first it starts to be very irregularly, Geraldo, and actually, if that is the cause of death, it may be somewhat hard to determine in retrospect, because the heart itself may not be that severely damaged. There's some signs they can look for. It may have started to beat irregularly without actually damaging the heart. If the heart itself is damaged badly, that's called a myocardial infarction or a heart attack. That will be determined to be the cause of death.
I bet that corpse doesn't weigh 140 pounds, 135 pounds. He was a bit taller than I am. I'm 5'10". He weighed probably 40, 50 pounds less than I do. I weigh 167. I bet he was 130, even less. He seems so ill health.
And it's a reminder that such a larger-than-life figure in the end is just a human body.
And Julie, do you find sorrow in Times Square? Is it curiosity? What would you report the main emotion of the passers-by?
It seems like people get excited when you talk about Michael Jackson. I don't mean to be morbid here, but Michael Jackson, the biggest pop star this country has ever seen, has died. Yet when you talk about it, you have smiles on people's faces. Perhaps that's because people remember his music more than, unfortunately, the controversial legend that he left behind, being his background with the sex charges that happened back in the early 2000s. I just want to talk to you because you happen to be a huge fan. Would you say that you're feeling sorrow today?
I'm not even sad yet because I cannot even believe it happened. I got like 300 text messages today saying he died. I got on Twitter, all over Twitter, Facebook, I can't even believe it happened. I'm like devastated, but yet at the same time I'm still in shock. Like Michael Jackson, I don't even believe it.
And you're a huge fan. You know all his songs.
I know all his songs, Thriller, like even like the later songs that people didn't even like that much. I loved them. I was a huge fan, and like he will live forever in my headphones and headphones around the world.
Do you guys feel like this is a sad day? I mean, you know, despite Michael Jackson's
Same as
history.
Elvis Presley. I would say it's the same day as when Elvis died, John Lennon died. I'd put it on par with those days. I think they're moments where you were standing, you will always remember that moment.
Silvo, you said that you remember where you were when Elvis died. Where you?
I was actually in Columbus Circle when I noticed people gathering around televisions, and that's it's a moment I'll never forget.
And you'll never forget the moment you were where you learned Michael Jackson passed away.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The same as.
All right. All right, Geraldo, I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, Julie, thanks. Let's just review what it is we have been watching, even as the crowd in Times Square was responding to Julie's questions about what their reaction to Michael Jackson's passing is. His body was transported from the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center by sheriff's helicopter very close to the LA County Coroner's office. His body was then, and I'm sure we'll see the shot again, removed from the helicopter. You could see just by looking at it, the size of it, the slightness of it, compared to the law enforcement and other officials, how tiny he was. He was removed from there, the medical center, to the coroner's office, where we are told the autopsy will be expedited. Dr. Mark Siegel is reporting that the toxicology and other of the forensic testing on the body might take several days, but is it not a fact that they could possibly, when there is a heart attack, is there a physical burst heart?
Not a physical burst heart, but they will be able to sometimes see visibly sign of damaged tissue to the heart. And then they will begin to look under the microscope to confirm it. They may also determine, by the way, that he stopped breathing first. They may see fluid in the lungs. So they will be examining the lungs and the heart physically, very carefully.
And again, folks, I want you all to remember our reporting about the disarray in his personal life. He was sued, remember, not more than 6 weeks or 2 months ago by people who had been the closest to him in this last phase of his personal and professional life, including Ramon Bain, who was his spokesperson throughout that 2005 trial. Her own mom is ill, and she is sequestered right now. You know, this is a guy who would look you in the face, you'd think he was your best friend, and I don't believe he had a venal bone in his body, but then the next day, he'd be off and he'd trade one manager in for the next, one spokesman in for the next, one producer in for the next, and they all played off against each other and sued each other. You have to recall that this guy was a gigantic businessman for all of his indebtedness. He was still had a revenue estimated at $500 million based on his music catalog. Remember, it included many of the Beatles songs. This is the guy who had an avalanche of cash cascading down into his life, but he spent it. During the time I was at Neverland Ranch, the extravagance, incredible, exotic animals everywhere, a house that was lavish in its decor, portraits of Jackson everywhere, you know, a full-size movie theater, a staff that looked as if, to me, it was, you know, a county, a highway department, so numerous.